Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next level. Again.
Once again.
Welcome to the next level once again. Hello, party people. It's your boy Dre, and it's Genesis Mini 2 time at long last, and who the hell else would I talk about a mini console with other than Vin? I almost called you the Vin.
The Vin, the designated crusty curmudgeon in crime once again.
CIC.
Number 2.
Okay. Let's do this. So, finally here to talk about this. God, it's been so long. I mean, like, what? This thing came out, as of this recording, it came out roughly 6 months ago?
Yes.
And, like, we've just been plugging away at these games because it's a lot. And we don't shortchange anyone on Fine Time. If we're going to talk about a mini console, we're going to play the games. Now, obviously, we're not going to talk about every single game. If you came here for us to break down like Street Fighter, for us to break down Streets of Rage 3, I mean, you're looking in the wrong place. Everyone knows what Streets of Rage is already. So we're not going to do all that. At the same time, we're going to go through a majority of these.
Yeah, it would be here all day if we went through every single one in depth.
And we may be here all day anyway, so... Anyway, I guess just some real quick background information. I guess back July 22, Amazon, like, quote unquote, leaked this because it just appeared on the site someday. It's like, oh, I guess this is happening.
We had no idea this was even a thing. And then, but shortly thereafter, Sega confirmed this sucker. They're all like, oh, like this, they had a website ready to go with like this whole like dedicated interface and everything, saying it would in fact come out October 27th.
Yeah, and you could only get this one on Amazon, unlike the Genesis Mini, which the original that I picked up at Walmart shortly before the Rona, because I definitely knew that was going to happen, right? I'm glad I did, because boy, I tell you, I spent a lot of those days. God, remember how many days I spent playing Wonder Boy and fucking,
you did.
Like, oh man. Alicia being mad at people never telling me about Elysia Dragoon and shit. Yep. Like, man,
you sure were.
Yeah. Anyway, that was some Rona times. Anyway, this was only available on Amazon, the Genesis Mini 2, which kind of signals it's like they understand, like, okay, only people who really give a shit are gonna buy this.
Yeah, it's just, basically at heart, it's a super niche product, right? And the weirdest thing to me is that even on our North American listing, it said sold by Amazon Japan, which totally bamboozled me. I was just like, why is it still being sold by Amazon Japan if I'm on the US website? That's like weird. One additional note is all like, this made the shipping cost a lot, because like the pre-order prices were really, really weird, because my unit, when I pre-ordered it right away, it was $106.65, which is like super strange, right? And then after everything was said and done, it almost became $140. So I'm like, that shipping was ridiculous, man.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, like, because it's like, damn, that's a lot of money for like a Genesis. Now it's worth it, right?
Yeah,
like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it is.
But like, Jesus Christ, this isn't something you're going to go to Walmart and pick up for. I forget what I paid for mine, $80, $70.
Yeah, it was slightly less. Yeah, I think, but
I don't remember.
Yeah,
but yeah, this, so like in fashion, Genesis Mini 2, it's also a Genesis Model 2, which I wasn't even aware they had in Japan, but I guess they did.
Yeah, and like I didn't even really see a Model 2 in the flesh, so I mean, I wasn't really aware of how it looked. I just knew of it because I had the Chonky Boy back in the day.
That was the shit. The microphone, the mic in, and the slider for the volume. That was fucking excellent.
It was so good. Oh my god.
Yeah. 6-button controller this time, so everyone can shut the fuck up, even though like no games on the original Genesis Mini use 6 buttons outside of like what, Street Fighter or something?
It was Eternal Champions 2 on top of that. I think those were literally the only 2 games that used it.
Yeah, and who the fuck, like, I'm sorry you want to play Eternal Champions. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, God help
I'm not
you.
going to begrudge anybody for doing that, by the way, but at the same time, it's just like, who actually cares?
I didn't. I think the coolest thing about the Genesis Mini 2 is that on the controller, there is a mode button to bring up the system menu. So, because before, you know how it is with every console, you have to do like a weird, like, hold start for so long, or like on what was it on Turbo Mini, you had to select and run at the same time.
Yeah, select and run. Oh, it's so unwieldy, man. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
But actually having a dedicated button for that, it actually feels really good in comparison to the original Mini. Now, like, I guess if you had like a dedicated controller on the original, or like an alternate controller in the original Mini, you could just bring up the menu lickety split too. But it came with the 3-button controller, so that's just what I use. And like holding the button down, it just never feels as good.
No, never feels as good. It works. I did it, but I guess you could physically press the reset button on the system.
Sure,
but yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm not reaching over if I don't have to.
Yeah. And
one really hysterical part is that in Japan, there's an optional cyber stick controller. The cyber stick. I'm not making this up.
Cyber stick.
Cyber stick. And this enabled optional controls for some of the games, but we're not made of money, so we didn't import it.
I gotta be honest with you, dog. I did not even know this existed. So,
yeah.
You know, whatever. I had no idea this was a thing.
Probably good that that we didn't pick it up.
Not originally or for the Genesis Mini 2. Never heard of a cyber stick.
In general, the cyber stick.
Cyber.
Don't you want to play Night Striker with your cyber stick?
Not at this resolution. Not.
Oh god! Oh my god!
We'll get to that, but yeah.
It's still fun, but
it is, but you know.
Another interesting part is like the games included on the Japanese and North American versions are actually like substantially different.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this because, like, what would you say? Because, like, we were kind of debating back and forth which one we should do, and ultimately we decided on on our Genesis Mini 2, not Mega Drive Mini 2, just because the Genesis stuff on here was just way better than the Japanese stuff.
That was my conclusion, though, like, we had to think about it, though, because the Japanese lineup has some of those Game Arts JRPGs like Lunar or, like, whatever, right? But
Popful Mail as well is
Popful
the one for... Popful Mail is the one for me that, if anyone doesn't know, that's like a classic Nihon Falcom RPG.
Yeah.
And that's the one I really wanted, but that did not make the jump somehow. Lunar, I could give a shit about. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people like Lunar. I don't care. So that's fine. I get it, but you know, not for me. So
I can't read it. So yeah, I can't even read the games either. So there's that too.
That's what I was gonna say. People want these things, and I understand that there are North American versions, but I'm the only one who should really make that choice. And I can I can read Japanese, but not like, can I read like JRPG Japanese? Kinda, but it's a struggle, dog. So like, and you can't read anything. So
the entity known as JRPG Japanese.
JRPG Japanese. That's a different level of intermediate Japanese that I am not at yet as of this recording. So like, I can read a lot, right? Don't get me wrong. I can read a lot, but I don't know, man.
You'll get it in time for the Mini 3.
What? So I could play what's even left? Snatcher in Japanese. I can already do that on the Turbo Mini, right? If I really feel like challenging myself.
That's it. Yeah, pretty much. But I was momentarily considering like Star Cruiser and like Starblade on the Japanese lineup. But
Starblade.
Yeah.
I actually did not know there was they made Starblade for Sega CD. I had only ever played that at the arcade, so
yeah, I didn't know either. But most of the rest of the lineup was really just like licensed games. I mean, there was like a Captain Tsubasa game on there apparently, and it was like, that's cool, but like we don't really care. So
I don't give a shit. Starblade jogged my memory on something. You ever play Cyber Sled?
I
Namco.
never did. I never got to. I always wanted to.
Yeah, our arcade had that cabinet. It was ridiculous. I know there's like a PS1 port, but I can't imagine. That has to be like the shallowest arcade port ever. I don't even know what you would do for a home version.
I don't. Don't you have to use a peripheral though? Like I thought it was, or is it not peripheral based?
I mean, look, it came out here in the U.S., so
you mean it works somehow?
Yeah, and this is before DualShock, right? So it has to work somehow. Maybe it doesn't.
It's some facsimile of Cyber Sled.
Yeah. But when I saw like Super Hang On and like Shadow Dancer and Super Shark and like Outrunners and stuff, I had to get our Genesis Mini too. Our Genesis stuff was just too good for me to ignore. Elemental Master, I couldn't ignore it.
Yeah, it was way more interesting, just in terms of like stuff that I can actually read, and as just in general, the lineable is more interesting to me. You mean you weren't here for Desert Strike?
We're not going to talk about that game today, but no, I was not here for Desert Strike. I don't think the Strike games are bad. I just don't really have a whole fuck of a lot to say about it.
I thought you were going to say I don't think they're bad, but I don't think they're very good either.
They're fine. They're fine.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah, I like it just fine. I just don't know what to say about Strike these days. So we're gonna
the entity known as Strike.
Yeah, the entity known as the Strike series.
They've been stricken out of the list.
Didn't they try to bring one back for Xbox Live Arcade? I feel like the era of when they tried to do shitty retro revivals. Remember, like
they try to bring back everything, but that one escapes me somehow.
I could be making shit up. I mean,
It makes sense. I just don't remember it.
Let us know out there if there was a Strike game for Xbox Live Arcade. Anyway, in the 360 era,
some curmudgeon knows.
So we're just going to get right into this. You guys know how we do this. We kind of loosely group these, but honestly, we're just going to go through and talk about the games that we feel like. You know what I mean?
We're the notables, as it were. Yeah.
Let's start with the games that we didn't know about or knew about, but we didn't know anything about for realsies. So basically the surprises to us, right, to one or both of us. Mm-hmm. And we can start with a great one in Midnight Resistance, because this is a run and gun, a Data East run and gun. I think this game is fantastic. It's not great graphically at all. Like its animation is very sorely lacking. As you know, it runs real sluggish too, especially for a Genesis game. It runs slow. Like you make it like early SNES, like first year SNES game slow. Like that kind of slow. It has this like very embarrassingly deficient intro. It doesn't even have music. It says like mom, and then it shows like a person, and it's like sister. I don't know. It says like family members, right?
Yeah, but that intro's so weird. Is this supposed to be a message to his family? I mean, I guess, but why? What is it doing here?
I don't think it's supposed to be a message. I think it's supposed to be like those are the people who he's rescuing, or people he keeps in his memory, or something.
I guess. I think he says, please be safe at some point. So, I mean, that's why I got that idea.
Yeah. So, like, people he's, they're on his mind, I guess. Anyway, it almost resembles a Master System game in that regard. Like, I know that sounds kind of rude, but it kind of does.
It's true.
Midnight Resistance more than makes up for it in like pure ingenuity. The level design is really imaginative for a run and gun of that time. It's like perfectly paced and really fair. You don't feel like I always get on here and complain about stuff like Contra 3 that feels like so picky or so, you know what I mean? Yeah. It just doesn't feel good sometimes when you die. Yeah. You deserve to get hit in this game if it happens to you.
I agree.
The control scheme is weird. You can aim and move independently. It's a little weird to get used to at first, but honestly, it really works. It's one of the better 3-button setups I've ever seen for this kind of thing. The soundtrack is incredible. It's better than the arcade version, because I went back and listened to it, because I actually didn't know this was an arcade game until I researched it. It sounds great on Genesis. Honestly, a true diamond in the rough. It looks rough around the edges, but Midnight Resistance is great then.
I also really think it's easy to pick up and play. It doesn't really get over convoluted with it. It's paced well. I like the earlier levels are not just like a cakewalk. The enemies in opposition come at you pretty quick, but not like overwhelmingly so. And I just think like the presentation is just so wacky to me. I think it really it symbolizes sort of, or really embodies those like sort of late 80s motifs in sort of a wacky way. I still don't really know why it's called Midnight Resistance. It's kind of a weird title.
You know, I never really would have thought about it unless you said something, but I mean, I don't fucking know, man. I have no idea. Like, Midnight Resist? I don't know. Maybe they're rescuing them at midnight. It does appear to be dark in those first few stages, right? Before they get to the jungle.
So, they do take place at night, so maybe it's midnight.
the Midnight Resistance. I don't know, man. Great game. Midnight Resistance. Excellent game. Yeah,
just stick with it, and it'll really grow on you. Another game that I'd like to bring up is Atomic Runner, which I didn't know about. I kind of cracked jokes that it was Jetpack Joyride's distant ancestor, and when else? I mean, and your dad gives you this armor that turns into either Kamen Rider or Ultraman. I don't really know which, but it's both. Let's just say both. And immediately thereafter, you just like gun everything down, lickety split, and you got like the most crazy flippy jumps this side of Contra. It's like, what is the world is going on?
Oh, and you can do crazy jumps. I like the one where you jump straight up. It's like boing. It's like, what? How can I mean? Like the Atomic Runner could just jump.
Yeah, it's I guess that's the power of like common Ultraman. I guess, right? But there's some weird stuff as you're like automatically running. You'll see like flamethrowers, and I've bumped into random dudes, and like when you die, the death animation is kind of funny because you just like flop over and that's it.
And that sound too.
Yeah, but I think the game is really fair. It doesn't really set you back that far when you're killed. It is like technically loop based, so that you do restart from a checkpoint, but you never really set that far back, and the handles well, and I think it's pretty cool.
I really like Atomic Runner. Like, I like this game's style and vibe quite a bit. Like, it's another unusual control scheme, just like Midnight Resistance, but it really works. And you can go into the options and change. There's like a lot of different ways you can control the game. You can have it set to where you face the direction with the D-pad. You could have it flip. If you press A or C, you fire in that direction, left or right. You can have all sorts of control schemes with this game, and they're great. You can find the one that works for you. And I like the power-ups are like super cool and different from each other. Like, you have that very Monster Lair kind of blade thing that kind of loops around in the air.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's kind of what it reminds me of the most. It's like I don't know, Cold War Russia Monster Lair.
Yeah, kind of what it's embedded in the name Atomic Runner, right?
Well, also, yeah, Atomic Runner. Also, in Japan, this game is named Chenlov. That's the name? I guess that's the name of the main character. But there's still remnants of that in our game, because once you beat the first level, you see like the map of the game, and it says Chenlov on the map. They didn't bother to change it to Atomic Runner. So like,
I didn't question this at all when I was doing my run-throughs. I was just like, I just kind of brushed it off, but then it had occurred to me that, that is actually the name of the game in Japan. I think it's Atomic Runner Chenlov, and it's like, okay. It's kind of weird.
It's just Chenlov. I don't think it's Atomic Runner. Is it Atomic Runner Chenlov? I think it might just be Chenlov. It might just be
Chenlov. I think you're right, yeah. Yeah, that's weird, man. Because everything at the time would rebrand, so I don't know.
Yes. It's weird to miss something like that. Almost like, you know what it reminds me of? When Rad Racer came here, because in Japan it's called Highway Star.
Oh yeah.
And so when you use the icon, it's like an HS, it's like a metal logo, like Weezer, or like, you know what I mean? Or like Van Halen, like the VH or something like that.
Oh wow.
It's like one of those kind of logos, but it's like an HS. I'm like, why does this icon look this way? And I found out way later that's called Highway Star.
Oh man, God, I forgot. Jeez, that's funny.
How can you forget about Rad Racer, the Nobu Uematsu's real masterpiece, not Final Fantasy games?
So yeah, he did bust some chops on Rad Racer.
Did you know Rad Racer 2 only came out here? Did you know that? That was just for us. Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, we have exclusive Nobuo Uematsu tracks in that North American tracks here.
That's the real highlight. It's the Uematsu tracks. Yeah,
they're jamming ass songs, dude.
They are jamming. It's true. Yeah, that's funny.
So let's talk about Ranger X real quick, because I actually emulated this game ages ago. I want to say like very early 2000s, so a long time ago. I'm old, everybody, because I remember it being mentioned as an underrated gem. I don't remember, again, I'm going to date myself, like the IRC channels I used to go to would mention it or something like that or whatever, right? But I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I don't remember what I thought of it back then, but I'm trying it here now on this Genesis Mini 2. And I'm like, I can't really say I agree with the assessment that it's an underrated gem. It's fine, but it also feels a bit flimsy and cheap. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can explain it better than I can, but it's trying to do too much. It's trying to do the thing where it's like the level is like, you know, kind of open-ended, and you do these tasks and then you fight the boss. Like, you know, it's not like a straight A to B point, but
yeah. And so it's really inconsistent, right? Because like the first stage, it's almost borderline Defender like, right? Because it's almost like a tube that like just loops, and like you kind of just like take things out and then you progress the level that way. But like then the second level's like this labyrinth, and that's like a pain in the ass to navigate, man. It's like everything kind of just like twists and turns and looks the same, and it's just like it seems to be really like weirdly directed and really inconsistent. And I just don't really understand the point of all that. I feel like it would have benefited from sticking to like some direction, but yeah, I don't know. But the one thing I did like is like the character was pretty cool looking, I guess, and the firepower felt decent. But like it's just one of those cases where the levels sink it.
Yeah. Also, I didn't really understand the like helper thing. So you have this like little like doodad that can change into like a platform or change into like a you know what I mean? Like I don't that was weird. And then you can like I don't know, that it was just like a little too much. Like I said, like basically open-ended level design that doesn't come together with its mechanics or just as levels.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, it's kind of, I get what they were going for, but it's a missed opportunity. I get why people would like this though, but not me.
Yeah, you would really need to stick with it and overlook some of these shenanigans to get some mileage out of it. But yeah, for both of us, it just seems a little too inconsistent to really get like that much fun out of.
How far did you get?
I might have gone to the end of stage 2. I don't remember.
Maybe. Okay. I think I got to like the 4 stages. I don't know. I played as much of it as I could stand. I just, after a while, it's just like, it's fine. I don't think it shouldn't be here. I mean, it is like an interesting artifact. It's just kind of not that great.
Yeah. But that's the interesting part, right? It's just like, they got the deeper digs compared to like the original Mini. So, I mean, I'm glad it's here. It's just, you know.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of deep digs, there is a true gem here. It's called Granada. It's a tank game. It's an overhead tank game where you do all sorts of wild tasks. And speaking of open-ended level design, that's what Granada does, right? Mm-hmm. You have to go kill these, you know, X amount of things on the map, everybody, the map that they actually give you, and you can follow and actually do things.
Yeah, there's a mini map. Oh my
God. So you're never lost and you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing at all time. Take notes, Ranger X. Anyway, the graphics in Granada can kind of politely be described as humble, I guess. And therefore it doesn't really look like much on the surface, right? If you were to just look at it, but it like, if you play it, it quickly reveals itself to be an excellent update of those old tank game ideas. Like you like those games like Tank Force and shit like that.
Yeah. It's my jam. Yeah. Battle City, everyone's favorites.
Yeah, and I don't really like those kind of games. You like those, but like I feel like this is the update to those. Would you agree with that?
That's fair. Yeah, I can see that.
because like the level design has become this like radar search of like targets, and then you fight the boss. You fight and really cool bosses. The music just slaps, man. And it's like these very heroic, like kind of Gradius like compositions that it's very inviting, right? It feels like heroic. I like that type of shit. And the gameplay is like this kind of perfectly smooth difficulty. They don't start you off like easy, but you have a handle on things like pretty quick.
Yeah.
And man, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about Granada?
I think it's really cool. The levels feel tightly constructed to me, and I think visually there's sort of like this barren look, right? It's like very green. It kind of plays into the game's like relative simplicity, and for me, like the flow is like captivating just because it does have this pointed objective, right? It's like a whole search and destroy kind of thing, and I think it controls pretty tight. I never really felt like it was difficult to move the tank around.
Yeah, there's just something for me about these old like Wolf Team, like published by Renovation, like games that just really get me. I know this sounds like I'm doing a nostalgia thing, but honestly, I just think there was something to that relationship. I don't say this very often, but it's special. I feel like games like Granada are special. It was just a certain game at a certain time. They had a certain goal and they met it perfectly. Like I love when a game could do that, new or old.
I really do think ultimately it does feel special in the way that it really delivers on the sort of minimalism, right? I think that's like the most striking part about it. And I could definitely see myself going back to this and sinking some more time, especially as like it's not really commonly available either, right?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of it.
I had never heard of it before the Mini 2 either, yeah.
So I mean, this was kind of a surprise to me, and then I turned it on. I was like, oh, I'm in for a good time when I saw those Splash logos.
Oh, yeah, the logo design, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I was in for when you see that Wolf Team logo, you think a certain thing. It's like, oh shit, here we go, and it delivers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh boy, does anyone under 35 listen to this podcast?
Probably not. If we haven't heard of this game, it's like, what chances like anyone under the age of 35 have?
No, I guess we can move on. There's a couple Toa Plan shmups here. But one of them is Hellfire, Vin.
Hell, you've been caught in the Hellfire!
Oh no, are we gonna do that?
Moving right along.
I guess we're not gonna do that.
Hellfire's cool. I actually didn't know about this game, and I consider myself kind of a shmup diehard, but I hadn't heard of this. It's a really fascinating a Genesis shmup. There are like a ton of them during this era, like, right? But what I really appreciate about this game is that it's not that hard to pick up. The firepower is relatively straightforward. You cycle through basically 4 different weapon types, right? And something that's amusing to me is that not only do they each serve like a specific purpose, like rear fire or like vertical fire, but they're like color coded, so it's like very, very clear what you're using at any given time. And right from the first level, they get you like learning what each of these do. It's like, you better damn well switch at this point to like hit this target, because this target is diagonal, and if you're sticking with the same fire, you're not really good to really do your job. So it really organically gets the player like understanding what these different fire types do, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, this game is really great, if you ask me. Like, Toa Plan ports to Genesis at this time were very common, you know, in this era, and it's just a fantastic shmup. Like you said, cycling through the different gun types is not only fun, but it's necessary, and it's necessary right off the bat. They're not going to make you wait till level 3 and not have you learn that skill. Like, you are going to learn that shit, and it's an easy learning curve. It's not like too fucking difficult at first before they really throw the kitchen sink at you.
Yeah.
I guess this is kind of a Toa Plan thing in general, though. But I guess you could say the bosses aren't really all that. However, like, name a Toa Plan shmup where they are. So
that's not really why I play them, though. honestly.
Yeah, so it's not really, it doesn't really have that kind of flair. So I guess you could consider that a quote unquote flaw if you want to, but yeah, you can't just stick with your fave. You got to really use the four guns. And I love a gimmick game that really makes you use its gimmick in a way that's cool and not just like, okay, you can just do this. Okay, well, so what? Right?
I think the important part is it makes the gimmick not feel like a gimmick, right?
Yeah. Well, gimmick in this case isn't like a bad word, but yes, you are correct.
I just mean so far as other shmups that just kind of pile on like options. It's like, well, we have something here, the literal floating bit around you. It's like, okay,
looking at you, Robo Aleste, which we'll dunk on later.
Oh, we'll get on that one later. Yeah,
yeah, you're right. I didn't really think about the fact that the weapons are color coded. That is kind of interesting.
Well, I do like me some colors, right? I mean, so I thought that was pretty funny personally, but
yeah,
it's like your ship is now green. It's like, okay. It's just like kind of funny to think about.
So, okay, let's move on to another shmup, actually, a very different shmup, and something called Elemental Master, because I'm pretty into this one. It kind of reminds me of Lords of Thunder in a way, like mixed with like the sort of character shmup action that you might see in like some Psycho games, like a Dragon Blaze, I guess is a good one, or what, Samurai Aces? Maybe,
Aces, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So it's kind of a mix of those two things. This is vertically scrolling, though. It's pretty tough when you first try Elemental Master, as anyone who's played Lords of Thunder knows. Like if you pick the wrong stage, sometimes like you're not used to the game. It's like, oh man, this is ridiculous. But you can soon get a feel for not that there's a correct stage order, but there will be a correct order for you. Like you will find your own preferred path through the game, which I think is cool.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. In general, I actually really enjoy Technosoft's work. They're the guys that make Thunder Force and Lightning Force, aka Thunder Force 4. But I also thought that name was kind of funny, Lightning Force. but for somehow, I had never actually heard of this somehow. I guess that makes me a real fan. But it's pretty cool, but I found it pretty tough too, though not cheap. I really thought this was really well put together. And if you are in fact having any trouble with any of the stages, it's kind of like what you said, right? You can always just continue and switch off to another one. I guess what's really interesting to me is that you're not typically much of a Technosoft guy, but you really like this game.
Yeah, I'm not really much for the Thunder Force. I mean, I don't dislike them by any means. It's just not really, it's just a little too manic and twitchy for me. Like, sure. I'm more of a methodical shmup person.
Yeah.
Because I'm a more methodical person.
And I'm more manic.
Let me take a sip of my Pepsi. I am so methodical.
I'm bouncing off the walls with my can of yerba mate right now.
Whatever that is. But no, Elemental Master is cool, man. Like it has great music. Is like I said, I don't know. It's so Lords of Thunder to me, even though before that game existed. There's no way Lords of Thunder, when they were making Gate of Thunder, didn't see this game and take inspiration.
I'm sure there was some inspiration. And something that's kind of inspiring is like the intro is super ridiculous. Like these guys have crazy shoulder pads. Like I'm not sure if like you saw it, but like their shoulder pads have like 2 spikes and shit coming out or whatever. I'm like, what's going on with this game?
I don't know what it was with the late 80s, early 90s and shoulder pads, but not just in fantasy shit, but like IRL, man. We had some shoulder pads going on.
There was a recent album where it made fun of like the album cover has like guys with a guy with shoulder pads, but
Milli Vanilli. Vanilli. Yeah, they have shoulder pads for days.
For days.
Yeah, dude. Those videos, go look at those videos, man. Show like that square, it is like You know what I mean? That was the style at the time, you know?
It wasn't. Oh, it was a style. It's a choice.
Shoulder pads are a choice. Hashtag Republican convention.
Oh no! Oh my god! Okay, moving right along.
Oh boy!
Something I also had not heard of was this game, Crusader of Centy. I'm like, Centy? That's like a weird name.
Hold on. You've never heard of this game before?
Yeah, I actually had somehow never heard of this. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. See, I knew about this from magazines and shit. So I had heard of it. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I didn't know you didn't know anything about this. Okay.
Maybe I saw it in EGM or GamePro and immediately blocked it out of my head. And maybe it would have been better if I had. It might have been better if I kept it that way because this game I found to be a pretty ghetto pastiche of Link to the Past and to some degree Secret of Mana, which probably sounds pretty rude, but it doesn't really approach either in terms of like design. I dropped it pretty quick. I don't think I really got too much into it. Like there was a trading area with like 3 branching paths for some reason, but there was like a presumption that you knew where to go, and the direction wasn't really there, and I was trying to dig around and spelunk around to like find out what to do. But just in general, there wasn't really much of a hook. I mean, I don't know about you, but like I wasn't really hooked on this one.
You know, no, there isn't. So it's Crusader Centy feels like one of those games that's obscure and it's rare, but nobody ever talks about it in any sort of glowing terms. They just talk about how rare it is. That's because it was forgotten for a reason.
I'm sorry, I was going to crack a Crystalis joke because I think that was your the way you referred to Crystalis when you beat it recently.
Yeah, like nobody talks about it for a reason. It's aight. That's all you really say about it. Like, why should we revere it? It's fine.
Yeah,
but Crusader Centy is not fine. Like fucking Crystalis is a masterpiece compared to Crusader Centy.
Okay.
Crusader Centy doesn't have anything going for it. It's easy to call it a Link to the Past ripoff, and it kind of is, but that would require, like, you know, an interesting world and like cool dungeons and like stuff to explore and stuff. And like Crusader Centy has nothing of the story. It's really flat and it's really boring, and it's full of the kind, it's like you said, it's full of the kind of presumption that just makes you want to turn off the game and forget that you started, which is what I'm going to do. I'm never going to go back to this game. Yeah. I played it for maybe like 8 hours.
Oh, so I got to like a smokes.
Few, yeah, I got to like a few different areas, you know, more than a few. But I was thinking like, okay, maybe I'll push past this weird first part and then I'll get into some cooler stuff. The cooler stuff never came. The only thing I remember now is that there was a Sonic cameo on the beach level. That's it.
Oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, but This game is nowhere near as colorful as Sonic, man. It's actually really desaturated and it's kind of drab to like look at. So it's like, I don't know.
I just couldn't. Yeah, it's a shame. I always saw this and it's like, okay, you know, if I had a Genesis sometime or whatever, and I just never really saw the game and I just forgot about it for years and years. So it's not like I ever ROM'd it or anything. Yeah. And then no one ever mentions it because why would they? Right? So
because no one cared to play through it.
Like, dude, this isn't even as good as like we dunk on Beyond Oasis. Beyond Oasis is way better than this.
It's more interesting to look at. Yeah.
It's more interesting to look at, and this, like, you know where to go. You know? So it's like, fuck. Okay, one more before we take a break of games that we never heard of, really. And I think both of us, I had never heard of Mansion of Hidden Souls.
Me neither. Yeah.
Okay, this is like a Sega CD game, and I just kind of want to start by saying, like, it has a CG intro, which, as everyone knows, in the Sega CD era, it was FMV time, live actors. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we always did on that system. This is computer generated, which honestly makes it kind of stand out.
Yeah, because surely it must have been pretty pricey at the time. It's like those workstations weren't the most ubiquitous. So, I mean, like, surely actually making the CGI was pretty laborious, I would imagine. But yeah, I thought this was really cool. The FMV use is really astonishing in a way because a lot of Sega CD games have pretty notoriously low resolution, so that the the videos just take up like a portion of the screen, but this FMV takes up like a good chunk of the screen. And there's a lot of it too, because I was trying to actually bump in the walls just for shits and giggles, and like there's actually unique FMV per like wall if you like just trying to like go up and bump against it. It's like, why did they do that?
It is weird, right?
Yeah.
It is weird that they animated all that stuff, but I guess they wanted to be thorough instead of just going and just not let you do it.
Yeah, that would have been lame. Or just like not, or just have a pause screen, yeah.
Right. But it's like the fact that they really wanted to go full bore and really feel like you're walking. It seems like a weird detail, but honestly, it works, right?
For an adventure game, especially, yeah.
Yeah, I really like games like this. You know, I really enjoy like bumbling around adventure games of this sort. So like sort of a FMV take on one is cool. Like, you know, I didn't get too super far yet. I do want to go back and beat this one. I found a couple keys. I found a couple interesting like story bits. I was actually interested in what was going on here. You know, this is a pretty good adventure game.
I think it lives up to the title. Like, it's pretty ethereal in a lot of ways. There's some really weird butterfly action going on, and the voices are spooky. And I also
very
like
spoopy ass voices.
It's super spoopy. It's like you gotta find your sibling because it's spoopy time, or something like that. It's like, okay, I guess I'm going into this mansion for some reason. And I enjoy getting those keys. Like, I don't play the most adventure games, but I thought this was pretty cool. I enjoyed my time. Yeah,
it's fun. It's like a sort of a much less spoopy version of Seventh Guest, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, Seventh Guest. I keep forgetting it exists.
I've never actually played Seventh Guest. I have no idea. I'm sure
it's less spoopy than that. I imagine.
All right. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about some games we've always wanted to play and finally got to due to Genesis Mini 2. Be right back. All right, we're back.
I'm done bumping the walls.
Are you sure?
I would go do one more.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Whoa. You're bleeding. Ah! No! This cannot happen on Fine Time.
Seems pretty fine to me.
No. Bleeding is fine on Fine Time. You just can't make that noise afterwards.
Oh, okay. It's an important distinction to make. Okay.
Yeah. So, as promised, we're going to talk about some games that we've always wanted to play and finally got to due to Genesis Mini 2. So, let's start with Silpheed. And I want to start here in particular because I remember I've heard of this game. The only way I heard of this game was because of EGM. There was I think most video game magazines did this. They had like a letter from the editor, like up front. You know what I mean? They have this like spiel, right? Why are you so disdainful all of a sudden?
Because I forgot about it until you mentioned it.
So they had one in the April 93 issue of EGM. They had one on Silpheed. And I remember this distinctly because it was the first thing I ever read in games journalism where I just went, this is just fucking stupid. And I was 11 years old, folks. Like, even back then, I thought, wow, that is like maybe the dumbest thing I've ever read. So bear with me. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read a fair amount because I want you guys to understand how dumb this is. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So I'm just going to start from the top. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to give you an idea here.
You'd lose brain cells if you read the whole thing.
Oh yeah. We can't do that. So, and I quote, If you were to ask a dozen people who were at the Winter Consumer Electronics Show, remember that Winter CES?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot that even existed.
Yeah, then like Summer CES before E3. Holy shit. So what the game of the show was, almost everybody will think for a while and then say Nintendo's FX chip game Star Fox. I know this for a fact, as many of our own editors have said just that. Well, they are all wrong.
So stupid.
Granted, Star Fox is new and revolutionary and plays and looks great, but it just wasn't so good that it could be called Game of the Show. One reason why it stands out in everyone's minds is that Nintendo knows how to hype up a game. They don't just put a few carts out for people to play. They think big. So big, in fact, they built a whole geodesic dome around their Star Fox display. It was hard not to think of that game while at the show. So basically, he's saying Nintendo bought Game of the Show because they had a big display. Is what he's saying.
The only part about that that's true is they can hype stuff up, but that doesn't make it the game of the show.
I mean, that's just so, but he's already going stop the steal on like Nintendo money. Like he's already like
stop the steal.
I mean, he is though. I mean, like it's like hella like, man. Anyway, and I'll go on. Then what was the best of the show? It was an obscure Sega CD title called Silpheed. You see, Sega doesn't like to brag about their games. In fact, they did everything possible not to call attention to that game because it's not that good. First, they knew ahead of time that Nintendo would be hyping up their Polygon graphics game, so they decided to take theirs and hide it by putting it in the middle of a bunch of their other CD games. There was no need to run a Silpheed/Star Fox side-by-side comparison, as they once did with Sonic and Mario. What is he trying to say here? Like, Nintendo, like Sega's humble and they just, oh, here's our Polygon game, and like
my brain hurts. I don't know what he's doing. My brain hurts. I don't know. Like,
but if you were to read, like, imagine if this were like a tweet thread. You know what I mean? Today, people were like, "Bro, sorry, Nintendo's better than you," but like,
it's like I'm pretty sure it's not out of humility. I think it's Sega just didn't really rightfully think it was hot shit. There's some, I don't even know if you want to call it like confirmation bias or something. This guy lives in like some alternate dimension, man. I don't know. I also don't know why he's comparing Star Fox and Silpheed because they're not the same genre.
That's the big thing, right? They're not the same gameplay at all. He's only comparing them because they're both polygons and they're ships and they're flying out of a space station into space and you shoot things. They're not, I mean, one's a 2D shmup, one's a 3D rail shooter. I don't get what he's doing.
Also known as the same genre, apparently, which is pretty shameful if you think about it, if you're in the journalism field, considering you should be able to like distinguish between those things, but it's almost like he's just caught up in his own hype cycle and inflicting it upon other people.
Well, yeah, I mean, he already started off by insinuating Nintendo is only going to say Game of the Show, including his own editors, who he is now throwing them under the bus because Nintendo had a big booth. I would be so fucking mad if I worked here and like, someone wrote this.
I guess I'm a shithead because I don't believe the same thing, apparently. It's like, why would you say that?
I mean, you're throwing your own guys under the bus. Anyway, I'm going to skip a lot of the middle, but basically he says, finally, to keep this game completely secret, Sega decided not to mention it in their press kit. There was no need to tell the world that Silpheed had over 500k polygons on the planet level alone, that Silpheed moved along at 20 frames a second. The backgrounds do. I think the gameplay is actually at 60.
The game is 60, yeah.
Yeah, but the backgrounds move at 20. That Silpheed uses advanced fractal geometry, blah, 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 CD quality sound. Sorry, Sega, but I just couldn't keep it a secret anymore. Silpheed was the real Game of the Show. If you doubt it, check the pictures on page 52. Now, I couldn't find this page 52 because I just couldn't find it. But I do remember that he did like Digital Foundry ass zoom ins on like the details of like the ship wings or something. See, look at the Silpheed one. It's more detailed or something like that. Like that's what he did.
This reminds me of like the previous generation of consoles where like Microsoft would mention the number of teraflops, and it's like, I don't need to know the number of teraflops, dog. I need to know whether it plays good or not. It's just, I don't know.
I mean, just
vapid to me.
One more thing, and this is the coup de grace.
Oh God.
Forget FX chip technology. CD is where the action is, and Nintendo's unit is at least another year away. Sega has it now. Oh man,
that's like almost three decades ago, right? Jesus Christ!
This is April '93, '93 issue.
That's 3 decades ago. Oh shit!
Yeah, we were still hanging on SNES CD in April '93. Man,
yeah.
You know what's weird, and this is kind of an aside, and I kind of want to talk about this sometime, maybe with you. The 16-bit era is still so weird to me because we spent the entire time trying to kill it off.
Yeah.
Like we had SNES and Genesis, and those were considered like, okay, they're supposed to be here. Where's the CDs? Where's 3DO? Where's Jaguar? Where's Sega CD? SNES CD? Where's, you know what I mean? Like we spent all this time trying to like move past it while we were there. It's weird, right?
It's super weird. And my favorite example, Secret of Mana in 93 was supposed to be a Super Nintendo CD game, right? It's like, that was notoriously moved over. And like, it's just weird to think about, man. I don't know. I guess it was considered to be cutting edge, I guess. But CD platforms in general, I don't think they really flourish as much as people wanted. But
no, I mean, like they did fine, and they had their audience, and it was, you know, it was appropriate. I mean, they did what they were supposed to do. They pushed the technology forward for, you know, PlayStation and Saturn. It's fine.
Yeah,
but, you know,
true.
People acted like, oh man, who was gonna be playing like SNES CD games into like 97 or something like that? Like,
oh my God, what a stopgap that would have been.
I don't think so, right?
No.
Anyway, so thank you for bearing with me. I just wanted to read that just because it was so funny to look back on. It was worse than I had remembered. Stop the steel ass vibes on that fucking article.
You know, Evolve is cool too because at a giant booth at PAX.
Yeah, that's the reason. I mean, like, and look, he's not wrong in saying that, like, marketing and like sending people stuff. I mean, we'd have that now with like influencers and shit like that, right?
Yeah,
like trying to get people to give like, oh, Nintendo gave me the game, therefore it is good. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's what everyone does with Nintendo games or anything else. I'm just saying, like, they're called influencers for a reason, right? I mean, that's just kind of the business.
Yes, it is.
So there is some truth to what he's saying, but in 93, dog, for like internet clout that doesn't exist yet, not that he said anything about the internet, but you know what I mean? It felt like that kind of statement. Anyway, I'd be pissed if I worked there, but
I would not have felt great. I'm just one of those schmuckos that like Star Fox.
those schmucks who work here won't even can't even spell Silpheed. Anyway, getting back on topic, this is the only way I even knew what Silpheed was until the PS2 sequel came out in like 2000. But we kind of differ on this game, so I want you to lay out the case here for Silpheed, because let's just say it up front. You like it and I don't. So you tell me why you like Silpheed.
I think ultimately this is one of the more standout experiences on the Genesis Mini 2 to me, partially because it's so different and so unique, and it just relative to the other Sega CD content and shmups in general, and just the way it leverages the technology is like pretty much unlike a lot of other CD-based experiences I've ever seen. Like, again, the stereotype for Sega CD games is to have this dinky resolution on screen, but like the way it sort of juxtaposes the aforementioned 60 frames per second polygons, like on top of like full screen FMV, that's like pretty fascinating to me, right? And like, I wasn't sure what to expect from this game because I had only played the PS2 sequel beforehand, and like I had never even laid eyes on this original game before the Mini 2, but I really got sucked into this. I think the balancing's a little weird. Like, it throws a lot at you that's sometimes hard to read, but conversely, like, you actually get a lot of like health pickups, like, so almost as if it's almost like a concession that they kind of like threw too much at you or like whatever. And like, so like the pacing is like kind of weird, but like I just think it's kind of fun blasting stuff in this wacky sort of quasi minimalist sci-fi setting. I think that's pretty cool.
Okay, and I totally get that, and I get why you like this game. I just I'm just gonna kind of have to hard disagree here, unfortunately, just because like I think the enemy patterns and stuff are like woeful. It doesn't feel great. They just come and dive at you almost like an endless formation of like Galaga 88 or any other Gapless or whatever. Like it feels like that kind of game, but they never actually like form up. Not that I expected them to, but I just don't think that makes for like, I get sick of that shit like real fast. Like almost like by the time the first level was over, I'm like, okay, I've seen it. You know, and I just kind of was over it real fast.
Yeah,
but what you're saying is true. The visuals are great, and the fact they have the cinematic shit going on in the background at 20 frames a second, but you get to play the 60 frames a second ass like vertical shooting game on top of that as a visual, that is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just feel like it's just pretty unimaginative in like the enemy and gameplay department, and it just kind of betrays the whole thing.
I can see that. I mean, the enemy types are pretty, like, one, they're generic, and two, they're pretty, like, similar to each other. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, from an enemy blasting perspective, I could definitely see that. But it's really fun to me in terms of, there's a separate polygon test mode. You can actually, like, go in and check out, like, the way that these enemies are, like, laid out, and that's kind of nice. That's kind of the fact that you do that.
That is super cool. That is so cool. Is that the first kind of thing of its type, like a model viewer?
I think so. The first in the game that I know of, I mean, there might have been an earlier example, but like, I mean, I don't really know of one.
I mean, it's crazy that they had that back then. That's just so cool to look at. But like to sit here, I mean, to go back to that letter from the editor, that sit here and say this is better than Star Fox, like get out of here, man.
They're not the same game, first of all. Like, what are you talking about?
It's like, dog. It's like, yeah, man, I don't know. It almost feels like a waste of technology. I know that sounds like really harsh. Maybe that's not totally fair, but I just wanted like a slightly better game. I think the PS2 game is better, and everyone dunks on that. I think I'd rather play that.
I think that's the part where I kind of have the hard to disagree, because, like, man, that game is kind of paced slow. It's got, like, scrolling text intros, and the enemy patterns are, like, a little too sparse for my liking. But, I mean, look, like, in terms of variety, I can see it, but it's just, man, I don't know. I think I'll return to Silpheed. Even it kind of just throw stuff a lot of the time, but
I'll return to it too, just because I want to see the whole, like, not story. I want to see the rest of the visuals. They are cool. Yeah. Maybe I can knock it down to like maybe there's like a baby mode where I can just like not worry about
it. Maybe. I will also say that like the halfway through the game gets pretty rough. Like, I mean, but then again, the system, the Mini 2 does have save states if you want to resort to that. I was trying to like do it legit, but it has like limited continues, so it's like I think you get like 5, and so like once you use them up, you're back to the beginning, and that's kind of like whatever, right? But
yeah,
maybe we'll cheese it one of these days. I don't know.
I would like to. We'll have to look up and see if there's any like codes or something where you could be like invincible or some shit. I don't know. Maybe that exists. Yeah, I always forget that's an option with old games. So we can always just kind of readily cheat sometimes if we need to. Well, I guess nowadays, like they let us cheat again. They have like story mode and stuff for like AAA games where you don't have to do shit. You just kind of, you know what I mean?
I never thought about it that way. It's the story mode's like the extension of that. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Oh
yeah. No, that's the way I've always thought about it. Yeah,
and that's coming back in like even like Final Fantasy 16's got that like auto everything or whatever, right? I mean, that's
right. Yeah, like there should always be a don't worry about it dog mode. Yeah,
don't worry about a dog mode.
Like I'm too young to die. Like below that, like don't worry about it. Dog.
Oh man, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, actually. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, it's a very interesting technological kind of wonder, actually. But you know, not a great game in my opinion. Vin thinks more of it though.
Yeah.
But let's talk about another CD game that's maybe much more well-known and remembered from this era, and it's Sewer Shark.
Was this a pack-in title for the Sega CD?
Yes. I want to say yes.
Yeah, I feel like it was. Like, maybe not with every unit, but I feel like it was early on packed in. Oh my god.
Let me ask you if you felt the same way I did when you saw that very grainy Sony ImageSoft logo show up in FMV form.
That was so funny, my god. But I mean, it's the Sega CD, so I kind of expected greatness, but
I mean, Sony ImageSoft, though. Well, that was it too. It was the graininess and the lack of color versus because I had only seen that logo on SNES. So seeing it on Genesis is like, oh boy, the color depth was like not there. Plus the graininess from the FMV was like, god. Oh boy,
it's so funny.
Tell me anything you knew about Sewer Shark before you played it.
I feel like I just saw in magazines, like, I feel like that was the only exposure I had to it, because I'd always known about it, but I never really played it. I mean, like, maybe I've seen it, like, on a Sega CD box at some point in time, but, like, again, I think it's just magazines, like, really, like, that's the only exposure I never heard it, I'll tell you that much.
So you want to hear the most 90s thing I can possibly tell you? Uh-oh. That I played Sewer Shark at a kiosk at a Blockbuster Music.
Wait, Blockbuster Music?
Blockbuster Music. I was about to ask you if you remember Blockbuster Music. I guess the answer is no. Yeah, there was Blockbuster Music. It was a chain of it sounds like a chain of music stores, and the gimmick was you could listen to any CD that you wanted. You could take it up to the counter, and there was like listening kiosks. You could take it to the clerk up there and you could hear it before you buy it, which back then was like a huge deal, obviously.
That's
anything
incredible.
You wanted. Yeah. So and then there was like a back section, almost like a Tower Records, where they have like assortment of video games and like other stuff that's not music. And they had Sega CD stuff back there. And I played Sewer Shark on this thing. And so like, I don't remember most of the dialogue of the TV was kind of low or whatever, but yeah, if you want to hear some like 90s ass shit. But speaking of the 90s, Vin, oh boy, that intro. I tell you what, I mean, we've seen a number of FMV intros in our time being alive through the 90s, but like, I almost don't even know what to say about it. It is so ridiculous. Okay, let me ask you this. I'm
scared.
What? Why did they always do the talk to the camera thing as if they're talking to you, the player?
I guess it's a way of like immersing the player, but it's so ham-fisted. It's like, and they yell at you. They're pretending to play soldier or like sergeant. They're just like telling you to do something, and the whole time just like stop yelling at me, man.
Yeah, it's like, come on, rookie, you need to learn the ropes fast and shit. They're saying directly at the camera, and it's like, dude, I just bought the game. Like, don't yell at me, man. Jesus Christ.
It's so unnecessary, but I mean, I guess it's a trope that gets the point across, I guess, but
yeah, it doesn't make me feel immersed though. It just makes it, like you said, it just makes me feel annoyed. It just pisses me off. It doesn't make me feel like they're talking to me.
Hey, rookie, you don't like being called rookie?
Yeah, it's like, shut up. So okay, why don't you tell me what you think of the game first before I go on?
I gotta be really honest with you. Like, I didn't really know how to play it just blind because, like, I was like trying to shoot stuff, but the game tells you to move in certain directions, but it's a little out of the way in terms of like the UI. Like, you kind of need to be looking up, but there's like things to shoot at, sort of, amongst these very repeated tunnels. I know it's an FMV game, but like it just kind of repeats the same looking things over and over and over again. So it's just like, well, this is really like silly and frivolous, right? Because it's repeating clips, and all of a sudden I died because it plays this clip of me crashing against like a wall, and then it plays the credits, shows like the freaking like credits, like it's the end of some like show episode, and I'm like, what? Like, what just happened to me? Like, what the hell is
this? You're fucked, dog.
It's like I don't even understand like how what happened to me. There's no feedback.
Yeah, so that's the thing about it, right? The feedback is poor because it's FMV and they can only show you so much. So I had the same experience as you, and then I hit up that QR code in the options and went to go look at the manual. of Sewer Shark. And that clued me in of what you're supposed to do. Your robot helper says, up, left, or something like that. And you're supposed to take those next 3 turns or something like that. But you have to hold A and hold a direction to make sure you're going up, because otherwise you're going to be moving the cursor to shoot shit.
Oh my god, is that how it works? Okay.
Yes. So you have to set your direction first, and then if you see the green light, okay, you went the right way. If you see the red light, that means you went the wrong way. But that doesn't mean you're going to die immediately. You can be saved from a number of wrong ways. See, but you don't know that unless you look at the manual, right? Well, so I did that, and then once I did, honestly, it's kind of fun. It's actually not a bad game at all. Sure, it's stupid and it's simple, and the attitude is really grating and dated, so extremely 90s. Although back then I didn't bat an eyelash. That's just what video games were, right? So
yeah, of course.
But honestly, that simple gameplay had me playing, and I came back a few times. I do. Once you understand what to do, it's fun.
I'll have to give it another shot, because admittedly, I didn't really look at the manual for that one. I did several runs and I just kept crashing. I'm like, well, okay, I guess. But you know what else is pretty grating to me though? That tunnel music, that main tunnel music, the riffage is so poignant. What's wrong with the music in this game, man?
I have to make a confession, although you already know this. I love it.
It's so over the top though.
So I looked into this. Actually, I didn't look into this. The credits after you die tell you this. The tunnel music is composed by Mark Mothersbaugh, who, if you don't know who that is, that's the guy from Devo, the lead singer and composer for Devo. So I like Devo, you know that. So that was kind of a shock to me to see that. And I was like, no wonder this was kind of jamming. I get it. So I guess you didn't like it. Usually I don't like stuff that is that Genesis-y, that, but I liked it. And then I saw that in the credits. I'm like, oh, of course I liked it. That's why. That's why I liked it.
I'm not saying it's unlikable. I'm just saying it's very brash. It's like, brr, brr, brr. It's it overpowers everything, man. It's why is it? Maybe that's why they hear the robot, because it's just brr, 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 brr. I'm just
you gotta pay attention to the flashing, the Simon Says after he says, because you're not just over the Mark Mothersbaugh music. You're not just going to hear the right, up, down, or something like that. You need to actually see that flash on the screen too. So, and then remember. So it's a little bit of Simon Says and shooting. Honestly, I think it's fun. I really do like Sewer Shark. Because at first I thought they were just including it because because it's the Sega CD game people remember, right? Besides Night Trap, but honestly, it's good.
Yeah, the way you explain it makes sense, so I'll have to give it another shot. So, alas.
Yeah, but moving on, I've always wanted to play Splatterhouse 2 because it's one of those Genesis exclusive arcade sequels, which was, common back in the day. Mm-hmm. So, and this was another one of them. What I think is interesting about this, though, is this was rated mature on Virtual Console and Wii Virtual Console when it came out. However, this is a teen-rated mini console. The Genesis Mini 2 is rated teen.
Which means, by whatever standards they consider Splatterhouse 2 to be teen rated, I guess, but
it's weird. I don't know. Maybe they just figured the totality of the system means you can have a mature. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how that works out with the ESRB, but I thought that was strange.
59 other titles override it and make it teen rated. That's weird to think about.
It is weird.
Yeah, this is an interesting sequel to me, because I don't know about you, but I'd never played a Splatterhouse sequel before. I only really did the arcade original. So,
me too.
I got pretty into this game. I thought the presentation was pretty cool, at least as far as the Genesis could push anyway. When you, start the game up, there's, this poignant shrieking voice sample. It's actually kind of chilling. I guess Rick's girlfriend, makes a very loud cry for help. I'm like, oh my god. that's why it's horrific, right? But as for the game itself though, the sprite size is pretty impressive. They take up a lot of the screen. Yeah, I think in general it handles well. There's some quirks though, huh? It's I thought it was kind of a weird game in some ways.
Yeah, I think the only real problem here is that it's more Splatterhouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the bosses are great. They are wonderfully gruesome and disgusting. It's great.
Oh yeah.
I love it. One time I may have mentioned this on the show before, but I first saw Splatterhouse, the arcade machine, through the window of something else. I want to say like a laundromat or some other place like that, a liquor store or something. I was just looking through the window and I was looking at the track screen and I saw the Splatterhouse and it was like disgusting. I had never seen anything like that at the arcade. And I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. For the kids out there, this is before like Mortal Kombat or any of the other shock stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, I had never seen anything like that. I was like, oh my God, this game looks forbidden. You know what I mean? Like, because I was just looking through the window of this place, you know what I mean? And seeing the track screen. Felt like I was intruding on something by seeing it.
Did the track screen show things get splattered because Rick can like swing a bat and like splatter enemies against the wall? Oh my God. That would have terrified me as a kid. Like, oh God. What
yeah. Yep, it does show it. That's why I was like, oh my fucking God. And it showed the first boss that shows like the leeches coming out of like whatever you have to punch all the. It was like, holy shit, this is crazy.
I think the leeches are so pointed to me, man. I remember that shit.
Oh, they're so disgusting. Anyway, I was going to ask you if this is better, if Splatterhouse 2 is better than the original, but I think just the way I talked about it in glowing terms, I definitely don't think so. But what do you think?
I was on the fence about this, but I think the first is still more of an interesting, consistent game because, like, there are really strangely prickly parts about this game that I wasn't, like, the most keen on. Like, there's an elevator in stage 2 where, like, these assholes, like, jump at you, like, some, like, fake-ass, like, Street Fighter Vega BS or something, and, like, you kind of have to, like, stand in a very specific spot or, like, you'll get, like, kind of, like, poked to death. And it's like there's just kind of, it feels very finicky, whereas in ways that I don't feel the original is. I mean, personally,
yeah, it feels like you kind of get like, yeah, it feels very ticky tack, kind of like, okay, I got hit by this, really. Where it's like, yeah, arcade games kind of do that sometimes, but in Splatterhouse 2, it feels a little weighted too far in the enemy's favor. In my opinion,
yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
I actually think the arcade original is more fair,
which is interesting because that game is not easy at all, right? But like, no. Yeah, but
I beat the TurboGrafx 16 version. On the
did
Turbo
you?
Mini.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did beat that version.
Oh, holy smokes!
I don't know if I could beat the arcade version though. I mean, maybe.
Fire up some Namco Museum on Switch and see how you fare.
Well, see, that's rated teen. That compilation is rated teen and has Splatterhouse.
Maybe
Splatterhouse 2 is rated mature. It's so weird.
I don't know what would. I mean, it's just as gory to me, so I don't really know the difference there. It's
if not more so. Anyway,
maybe the ESRB is treating it less seriously. I don't know, but their standards are changing.
Well, if you remember, the Cho Aniki Zero is rated like E10. Do you remember that shit? Like
vaguely,
yeah. The PSP game, I think.
Yeah,
and it even had stuff in the options like number of eruptions and like hardness. Yeah, it had like really sexual like options. It was like it was very I don't even know. You know what's funny? I don't even know what number of eruptions changed. I honestly don't even know.
I'm not sure I played Zero, but I can imagine what it might be something erupting.
Well, Cho Aniki import on for Turbo CD on Wii Virtual Console, that was also rated E10. I just think the ESRB didn't give a fuck. Anyway, speaking of shmups that are not as good as Cho Aniki, there is Robo Aleste on here. So you're much more into this company and Aleste than me. So why don't you kind of take this? Because
the reason is because Compile likes Puyo, right? Wait, what? Who said that? Nobody said that. Compile shmups, whether they're like Aleste or Xanac, or Xanac cross Xanac, they're kind of very gimmicky games. So, I mean, I think like growing up, I was a little more forgiving of gimmickry, but that's really ultimately what these games are about, right? And I think the presentation chops are always there, right? So like, I'm not sure how much like Musha you played on like the Genesis or whatever, but like,
not too much.
Yeah, so like the mech design and the music is typically what sticks with people, but nobody really talks about the shmup itself. And that's kind of for a reason, like the balancing's like all over the place, right? And like Robo Aleste never really escapes these gimmick like trappings. Partially just because they kind of like throw too much at you in like a wacky way. The game is hard to read, and like I actually like just gave it another go recently. It just seems like things just happen to you, right? So I mean, like even though the mech design is like really interesting and like merging Sengoku era motifs with like robots is cool on paper, this game just doesn't really feel like that fun. And that's despite liking this company's games more.
Yeah, that's kind of it. It just sort of happens to you, right? You don't really feel like you're in control of much. Your sprite, maybe it's because your sprite is really big. It's easy to get hit or something. That's kind of the case in Musha too, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
But like the intro is so long and useless. Like I think they're trying to establish that like it's trying to be like feudal Japan, like Sengoku era, like but like a shmup almost, right?
Yeah,
but robots.
For some reason they have like robot ninjas,
which like good. I mean, that's a nice 90s ass motif, right? But I just don't think I mean, I don't know, man. Like the Red Book audio even doesn't really, it's just not very good. The CD-ROM shmups of this time, like, you know, we're big aficionados of the Turbo Mini. There are plenty of shmups on there that are on the various CD hardwares of that system, and most of those are great, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And this one just doesn't do it. Like, but I did think one thing was funny in the options, where I don't think I've ever seen the difficulty option cruel. Cruel is like the highest difficulty option. I'm like, okay, cruel. Like that's like.
Well, I mean, clearly harder or hardest wouldn't have encapsulated what they're going for, so they have to say cruel instead, right?
I mean, like,
even though normal is already pretty cruel to me, but that's neither here nor there now, is it?
Yeah, it's plenty cruel, man. Like,
it's so cruel.
Yeah, you know, even like the Taito Egret 2 Mini that we talked about last year. Thank you if you listened to that last year on Fine Time, by the way. But like, we sung the praises of like the drug addled 3, as we called it, right? Like Ray Force and Metal Black and Darius Gaiden. Like, where do those succeed in motif where like Robo Aleste fails, in your opinion?
Well, if you're going to go with like wacky psychedelic shenanigans, you still need a well-balanced game on top of it. And like that's kind of where those 3 succeed, right? Because they balance the spectacle and the flow of the shmup genre, whereas this kind of just has the spectacle, right? And that's pretty much it. Like the flow isn't really not there because it's just stuff happening to you. You just die lickety split. Like you better be in the right spot during this boss fight or you're going down. And it's like, I don't know. That just doesn't. Those 3 feel good, but this doesn't really have the feel, right?
I have to agree completely. So, okay, I kind of have a controversial opinion. People yell at me about this. So, I think Shadow Dancer, game we're going to talk about now, is better than Revenge of Shinobi. I think Revenge of Shinobi is a tad overrated. Largely because of Yuzo's music. Not because Yuzo's music is overrated, because it's not. The music in that game is fucking crazy good.
That's a really important point to make, by the way, because Yuzo's music is never overrated.
No, it's never overrated. You can never overrate Yuzo Koshiro on Fine Time. You can never do that. So it's not possible.
Nope.
You know, Revenge of Shinobi, it just always felt a little picky and weird. It was like maybe like trying to be more console adventure like, which is fine, but the feel of it never felt correct to me. It just isn't exactly what I wanted from a sequel of that time. It has really picky jumps, if you know, like that waterfall stage. Like I don't know.
Waterfalls. There's even like spike traps and stuff. You better damn well jump onto the right spot, and the spots are really narrow too. It's like, oh man, I don't know.
Revenge of Shinobi is on this thing, right? Like it's on.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But Shadow Dancer, I think is better because it takes after the arcade original Shinobi, which is a game I love. I love the original Shinobi. Mm-hmm. So, and the Shadow Dancer feels like a very direct sequel to that. If you ever played Shadow Dancer arcade, this is like a kind of a, I don't want to say completely different game, but it's very different from the arcade version. So give it a shot. Even if you know that Shadow Dancer arcade game, the Genesis version is different and it takes after that original game. You have a dog.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And that's super cool. Yeah, and there's a feeling of simplicity to Shadow Dancer that just works, and like the fact that you like kind of charge up a shot and just like let the dog go. That's pretty cool. This game is pretty punishing in some ways because I think you die in one hit if I'm not mistaken, whereas that's not really necessarily the case in like other Shinobi games. But the enemy tells are more clear, so that kind of balances things out, which to me is like more important than the waves of things they throw at you in like Revenge of Shinobi, right? And yeah, I think like as long as you're patient and methodical, Dre, you're probably gonna get more out of Shadow Dancer.
I would definitely say so. It's just, I don't know. To me, it's a better game. Both are on here. If you get a Genesis Mini 2 or you have one, you tell us what you think out there, audience. But for my money, it's Shadow Dancer. For my 106.65 plus hella shipping or whatever this costs.
It might not be as controversial like once people like experience this. Maybe.
Yeah. Just people love Revenge of Shinobi, and I get why, but I don't know. This is better, my opinion. Okay, we got one more on the list of games that we always wanted to play, and maybe me more than you, but it's Shining Force CD. And if you've ever played Shining Force before, this is immediately familiar. It uses a lot of the same. I mean, you ever play a Camelot game, folks? I mean, holy shit, here you go.
You might recognize some UI elements.
Though I kind of want you to talk about it first, just because I have played more of these Shining games than you. So like as more of the Chad Pizza Dinosaur versus the Virgin Lucentai Shining Force battle. Here we go. So
well, this Virgin Lucentai hasn't beaten the Shining Force, just dabbled in them. So like I kind of dove into CD like I wouldn't say like blind, but like not largely familiar. And like I think this is like a really, really fascinating experience. And to some degree, it's a really good entry point for those that have never really played a game in this series before. And that's because this intro like goes off about establishing lore. Like there's a Foley voice intro saying like, oh, like the Dark Dragon did so and so some such, and like these guys from like the first Shining Force like did this to that dragon and so on and so forth, and they lived their merry lives or whatever, right? It's like, which is more context than I ever expected, by the way. I never expected them to talk about that much.
Yeah.
But and it's like it literally goes like 40 years later, and now you're in the shoes of like Shining, like the these other guys or whatever. And these other guys, like the way they introduce them is really, really funny. As they come on screen, they're like, oh, you're the son of like so-and-so, or like you've got the looks of this one guy or whatever. It's like, okay, I guess.
and you have no idea what you're just like, okay, sure. Like I recognize the shit, right? Because I played the first two over the course of the last couple years. The first one on the first Genesis Mini, actually, and the second one on Sega Genesis Nintendo Switch Online, but yeah, like this is now I'm playing this one, and it's very familiar. It's very close to those because obviously it's still based on Genesis hardware, even though it's Sega CD, but it's just very amped up. The music, man, that Red Book music, I tell you what.
It's so good. Like it makes you feel like you're really in a swooping epic battle, even though it's like Genesis visuals or whatever. It's the same production, it's the same art direction, but it's like sweeping as hell, man.
It's hella good. Yeah, I like the intro was like sprite based, not like animated, like anime or like, God forbid, like live action FMV. So
that would be weird. You need like anime cosplay rejects to make that one work.
Yeah. Hey, you never know. Yeah, you ever see the intro to, I think it's Toshinden 2, where they use like the live actors? Or maybe it's the first one.
I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Sophia. Oh no, it is so ridiculous. Anyway,
I heard you like leather, I guess.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
no.
outside of the intro voiceover and like other like chapter break things, the CD space is mainly used just to hold all these different characters and scenarios and stuff, because there's like 4 books to this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of content in this game.
Yeah, it's a lot of content, and that's an interesting way to use the CD space instead of just tons of, you have your Red Book audio and stuff, but it's not going overboard on like the voices and shit like that. They're really just using it to store all these sprites and all this information, which is cool. This would have cost a fortune on a cartridge.
Oh, good luck fitting all these sprites on there, but this is a cool game. I definitely think like production wise, it holds up really marvelously, and again, the Camelot DNA is definitely visible for those who play their later games, and it's just I think it's endearing to experience like even now, like it's got a nice splendor to it.
Yeah, for sure, it's great. I can't wait to go back and beat the rest of these. I think I'm on somewhere in the middle of book 3, so I really want to. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty far in, and it took a long time to get there. This is not a short game, so it's a lot.
Yeah, like the game seems pretty sizable. I haven't made as much of a dent, but like actually what I really like is just how like fast paced like the turns are, because like some like turn-based games like just like actually like just the flow of battle takes a bit, but in this game it's pretty snappy, right? I think it's pretty cool.
For sure. I think so. Okay, we will be right back, and we're going to talk about arcade ports. Sorry, as you can tell by the runtime of this podcast, we lied. We won't be right back because we talked way too long about Genesis Mini 2. So join us in another couple weeks, and we will be right back with those arcade ports. Until then, see you next time.
You've been listening to